Jesus. I think I hurt someone.
This is Ed Warren, here with Lorraine. Alright, let's get started.
Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is the third main Conjuring film in the Conjuring franchise. So this is a movie that, going into it, I was skeptical about because of the director, Michael Chaves, who directed The Curse of La Llorona, a film that I really don't like. And so having him taking the director's chair from James Wan, who made the first two films and who I think did a phenomenal job with those movies, was definitely something I was really worried about. So let's discuss this movie. So the film once again follows Ed and Lorraine Warren as they investigate a murder case caused by a young man who pleads not guilty by cause of demonic possession. Their investigation eventually leads to them making other dark discoveries along the way that are possibly tied to the murder case. So when it comes to the first two films, I've always loved them. They're some of my favorite horror movies to be released in the last decade, and so, like I said, I was really skeptical about the director, yeah, well, I didn't hate this film. I was still pretty disappointed for the most part. The story itself is intriguing, and I thought the whole idea of a person being in court, pleading not guilty, saying that they're possessed and whatnot, was unique and could have been really cool, but they really don't do anything with the court setting. It's like maybe used for about a minute of the entire movie, and I'm not even saying that as like a joke. Like, it's probably about a minute of the film is spent in the courtroom, and I didn't want, like, you know, that to be a huge portion of the movie, but I just thought they would have done some stuff with that, like seeing how people would have reacted to that, and they just don't really go for that. It's more so just focused on Ed and Lorraine Warren, you know, kind of going on this trail to like find these different things to connect to this case, and it just didn't work for me as well as the other movies whatsoever. I think one of the odd aspects about this movie that is definitely something that makes it different from the other two is that it's not set in just, you know, one, you know, haunted house. It's kind of, you know, following these characters, like I said, going to multiple different locations, whether it's a morgue or, you know, like an underground cavern or something like that, trying to connect these dots. And well, I thought it was, you know, definitely different from the first two films. It didn't work, and also because it's, you know, them traveling to different areas and it's more open, it's less claustrophobic, and there's just way less, you know, chance for them to do suspenseful horror and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's like, not that they couldn't try to do suspenseful horror, because I still definitely could have tried, and they just don't. I don't think this movie is scary whatsoever. It is without a doubt the least scary out of the main three, and I think a huge part of that is just due to the fact that it has a different director, a director who is not as experienced with the horror genre like James Wan is. So yeah, it's pretty disappointing in that aspect. Again, I didn't hate this movie. I do think it's better than a handful of the Conjuring spin-off films because the characters at the core of the movie are still really likable. That is probably the most positive aspect to this film, once again, is Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're great on screen as characters, and Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, who play them, are great as always here. So they're still really likable in this movie. Their chemistry and everything, they're a great on-screen couple and very enjoyable characters to see. Some of the other characters kind of worked for me, like the character who is on trial, Arnie. I kind of liked him. Him and his relationship with this other character named Debbie, was decent. But even then, again, like, they're just, I don't like them quite as much as either of the families in the first two Conjuring movies. So I think, honestly, the film just feels too different from the first two, to where it just doesn't really work for me. If it had better horror, I think it probably would have worked. But again, the horror doesn't work here. It's just not a scary movie. So it was just really disappointing in that aspect. And I know this is going to sound odd because I know a lot of people typically complain about jump scares, but they are kind of just a trademark of these movies. James Wan handles them very well in the first two films. This movie had barely any, which was, I'm not necessarily saying a positive or a negative. It's just weird. Because I was still expecting them to, you know, I was expecting this movie to have really lame jump scares and have like a lack of suspense, but it has a lack of suspense and a lack of jump scares. It's just never really trying to be scary, which is just odd. Like, it just didn't really handle the horror aspect well whatsoever. There were some aspects of the third act I kind of liked, but again, just nothing too special. There were like some kind of body horror scenes here, like with where they used a contortionist, and those scenes were pretty cool, and visually I liked them. But it's not like something that saves the movie in any way, shape, or form. They were just kind of visually, you know, kind of creepy and gross. So yeah, just kind of lackluster. Again, didn't hate the film, just found it to be pretty underwhelming. The last thing I'm going to talk about before I wrap up this review is the villain. The first two Conjuring films, in my opinion, have pretty memorable villains, especially the second one. In the first one, you have the witch Bathsheba, visually creepy, and there's just a lot of terrifying things that happen in the house in that film. In the second movie, you have the nun Valak, who is terrifying visually, and there's a lot of eerie things going on there. This movie, it doesn't really have a demon. It has like a lady who is a Satanist, and she's like planting these totems and stuff that are cursing these people. So it's not the same. Like, there's no demon that we ever see on screen that's like really creepy and terrifying. Like, it's nothing like that. So it didn't have the same stakes for me personally. It just felt so different, and I just don't think the villain worked because you didn't have anything that looked terrifying. Like, the first two movies, you have great suspense, but you also have a terrifying looking villain. This movie, you have no suspense, no jump scares, and no terrifying villain. So it's just not a scary movie. So yeah, it sounds like I'm bashing on it a lot. I didn't hate it because I still enjoyed the characters and I was still intrigued by the story, but I just wish the direction of it was different. So those are my thoughts on The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It.
Lorraine?
Hope you guys enjoyed this review. I originally had recorded a review with my camera, but it was out of focus the entire time, so I just opted for this. So let me know what you think of the movie down below if you've seen it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.